Touchdown Tampa Bay. You're listening to the Pewtercast.
Welcome back to the Pewtercast. This is our final thoughts on the Lions game, and now it's time for your final thoughts. This is the segment where we pull your emails, your comments, your questions, and we get to respond to those. Now, Ren, I just checked. So unless something has popped up in the last, hour, this week, I believe I'm safe in saying there are no new iTunes reviews.
Checking now.
Unless not Ren has been at it again.
No. Not Ren. Doesn't do that. Probably not. How about we get into I don't know how long it's going to take to load.
Yeah. Well, for anyone out there who might, this is a little bit of a joke. On last week, I had said that we had no new iTunes reviews, and Ren was like, what? There's a few out there. And he was absolutely right. There was. So, yeah, there were two. So with that, I will take this opportunity to say, listen, if you'd like to leave us an iTunes review, we would love to receive that review and read it on air. You can do that by going to iTunes, click rate and review, leave us a rating, preferably 5 stars, and leave us a review, and we'll read it here on air. You can always do that. And if you don't listen to the Pewtercast on iTunes, that's okay. Just go over to iTunes because you probably have that account anyway. Leave us a review, and just head back to listening to us on whatever regular platform you normally do. So with that, Ren, why don't we go ahead and we'll start pulling up some emails because we got a handful to get through tonight.
Yep, just look. No new reviews.
No new reviews. All right. Our first email comes in from our good friend, Chef Aaron.
Right.
I got to have a good conversation with him earlier today as well. But here's what he says. He says, not much to say about this game, so this email will probably be shorter than usual. They did what I knew they would, find a way to lose. This team, this coaching staff, and management, and I'm including Light, have absolutely failed this season in terms of execution, play calling, and getting the best out of players at every position.
Okay. You hear the frustration in that. I don't think you can lay this at the feet at Jason Light at all.
Uh-huh.
He rolled the dice at the You can't plug all the holes. We know
right.
that. You can only bring in so many free agents. You can only you only have so many draft picks.
Mm-hmm.
You can't say that any of those draft picks were wasted. The Beckwith pick was head scratching, but I don't think any Bucs fans are upset that he's here.
Right.
Now that we've seen him play, he got help for Joe McCoy in the interior defensive line, and then he rolled the dice on Noah Spence and Noah Spence and Jacquez Smith, and both of those just didn't work out. And what do you do then?
Yeah, it's hard to go back and judge him in hindsight. Like, you really have to go back and remember what was the information he was working with at the time. And listen, outside of bringing in new players midseason to plug holes, Jason Light's job, really since the season has started, has been looking towards next year, finding out. He's been neck deep, I would imagine, in watching the college market and seeing who's coming out for the draft for this following year. Once the season starts, we don't really hear. Somebody was saying, "Where's Jason Light been?" It'd be nice to hear from him, and I agree. It'd be great to hear from Jason Light more during the season. But you generally don't hear from your GM much during the season. So, but I get Chef's frustration. I really do. I really, really do. He goes on to say, I think he's going to talk about this a little bit more. He says, there are bright spots in Levante, Justin Evans, Beckwith, O.J. Howard, Peyton Barber, to name a few. Light ignoring the defensive line deficiencies was inexcusable. He needs to stop relying on injury-prone players. It's killing this team. It's probably one of the key contributors to why this team is more than likely going to take the biggest regression, or one of them, in a 2-year period. Light also needs to stop ignoring the drafts that are heavily stacked at positions of need for us. He did it when we had a need at wide receiver, and he's done it again when we had a need at defensive end, and that's unacceptable. I've been the biggest Light supporter, but this has been a huge stain on his resume.
I think I just talked all about that. So.
Yeah. The only thing that I would add to that is he brings up a really good point. And this, he rolled the dice with Jacquez Smith and Noah Spence, both players coming off of injury. To roll the dice on two players who are both coming off of injury, you roll the dice on one, cool. Rolling the dice on two, that's probably, I don't know if we call this lesson learned. I think maybe a lesson learned for me as a podcaster is that's probably not a good idea. Let's not do that one again in the future. I'm all for rolling the dice on people when you think that there's, some positive upside to them, right? But I think I might be a little more shy about doing it on multiple players returning from injury at the same position in the future.
Agreed, but by all indications, no one knew that Noah Spence shoulder surgery was, for lack of a better term, botched.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
I mean, remember what Robert Ayers says Noah Spence is going to get 16 sacks this year? Remember that? He did.
Yeah,
and during OTAs and preseason, everyone's like, "Yeah, here we go." And I don't know if you can call Jacquez Smith injury prone. He had one injury; it was a bad one, and as we've seen, different players heal different ways.
Mm-hmm.
He's still not in the league, and it's been about a year and a half or close to it since he hurt his blew out his ACL. And then you have somebody like Kendall Beckwith who was back and looked like ready to go. Even the Bucs were careful with him, but he looked like he was ready to go as soon as he stepped foot on One Buck Place campus, and that was 9 months.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the same injury. So
yeah. And I mean, to be fair, and it's kind of I think the point he's making. Relying on injury prone players. You remember last year we didn't really address a wide receiver need with Vincent Jackson because we had Vincent Jackson coming back off of injury, right? But he didn't really do much last year. Didn't really live up to it in his return, what was supposed to be his big return for his final year, which is really unfortunate. I think we all wanted to see VJax go out on a high note, and unfortunately he just kind of fizzled and wandered off into the sunset. And I get where he's going. I don't think that it's as damning. Outside of the emotional side of it, I just don't think it's as damning as some people seem to be on. But I do agree with him. I think that the defensive line, especially, is going to be an area where he has to focus this year. And I think I'm a little more gun shy about relying on injury prone players, at least when they're in the same multiple injury prone players in the same position. Again. Injury prone is not the right word. People coming off of injury,
Yeah.
So he goes on. He says nothing much to say about the team that we haven't talked to death about. There you go. He says, I'll say that if Martin gets the start again, that alone should have him fired. I think by him he might mean Cutter.
Of course.
Possibly. He says banter at this point is the better back. I think he means Barber. Autocorrect probably got him there. Yeah. Barber at this point is the better back, and now he's proven it. I understand Wren's hesitation on wanting to take Martin out because of the talent he's shown in the past, but we've got to stop living in the past on past history. Sorry. Martin isn't getting it done, and he's going to be gone after the season. It's time to see what Barber has to offer so the team can evaluate who to pick up in free agency and in the draft.
I'm on board with you.
Yep. Yeah, we talked about that in the first part of the show. Yeah, I think, Chef, I think Wren and I are officially on that train. We are on the same page with you there.
Or off the Martin bandwagon.
Off the Martin bandwagon, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's proven it. It's what we talked about.
There was a lot of empty seats.
Yeah.
By the time we left.
We're holding on.
Yeah, if we were in first class, a lot of room to stretch out.
Yeah. So the lesson here maybe is if you're someone for this team and Brent and Wren are on your bandwagon, look out.
Yeah. You're gonna have a bad year.
Sorry. Let's hear. He goes on. He also says, I didn't get a chance to ask this on the Instant Cast, Ren, but you said that this offense has been explosive. How?
Okay.
And he expands, so let me do this, and then I'll let you answer. He says, this team has scored 30 points one time this season, maybe two. Explosive offenses are like the Eagles, the Rams, the Patriots, the Steelers, and the Vikings, among others. This team has consistently found the end zone all year. I think Mimi failed to find the end zone all year. He says he stated on the Instant Cast that in 8 games it hasn't scored a touchdown in the first half alone. A lot of what is hampering this team on offense this year, hell, the last 2 years, is no consistent run game. I'm looking forward to seeing what intel you find that supports your narrative that the team has been explosive. All right.
I'm not sure I used the word explosive, and if I did, then I shouldn't have. My argument is that they're moving the ball. Like, defenses aren't scheming and stopping them. It's more of them stopping themselves and shooting themselves in the foot. We were talking about regression when Chef called in the Instacast, and what I'm going to go back and find is as far as yards and where the team is ranked as passing game, running game, from this year to last year, or even Dirk Cutter's first year as offensive coordinator, just to see that if the offense has taken a step backwards, because I just don't think it has. Now, yes, they've had trouble getting the ball in the end zone the past 2 years, including this year, and Chef is absolutely right that the Bucs hadn't scored a touchdown in whatever that stat was. That is, I can't really remember what he said, but that's true. But I just don't think it's because the offense can't move the ball or it's bad play calling, or I just think it's execution, you know. Mm-hmm. So, like we've said plenty of times during this pod, is the Bucs shooting themselves in the foot. So I'm going to go back and find those things, and that's what we'll see. You know, I'll either be saying, you know, Chef, you're right, or hopefully for my sake, I'll be saying, you know, look, the numbers play out. Like I really think that this feeling of Jameis has regressed, the offense has regressed, is because we're 4-9, 4-9 now.
Yeah, more
of you know, the Bucs never really put up a bunch of points. Like,
right.
You know, they just haven't undercut her. And I'm not, you know, it's hard to say that, well, if they're not putting up a lot of points, then how can you say they're moving the ball or, you know, quote unquote explosive? But it's
Jameis throws for 4,000 yards in his first 2 seasons and was on pace for that until his injury. That's how we can say they're moving the ball.
Yeah,
at least.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the argument. Moving the ball obviously doesn't equate to points scored. You know, as a Bucs fans, we obviously know that the past 3 years. So that's where I'm going with that. I understand that explosive to a lot of people means points, but, you know, I'm more of a – but my argument is that I don't think the offense has regressed because I think they're putting up the same numbers as they were, you know, since Cutter's been with us. And, you know, I'm going to have to do some research and I'll find out.
I look forward to hearing that research because now I want to know. Because I'm at that point. I found it interesting. You know, Craig called into the Instant Cast yesterday, and he was done. Like Craig in Vegas was like, this was his I'm pissed off game, right?
Right.
You had that a couple weeks ago. I had it back during the Panthers game.
The Saints game.
Or the Saints, yeah. So I think it's funny. Like as fans, like we're all kind of having our final straw, that's it, I'm pissed off game at various points. And you know, like I'm on the backside of that now a little bit of going, you know, it was cathartic to say the least, but now I want to start detailing this out because the truth is, if the Glazers are going to be getting rid of Cutter, you know, we know that it's not a good idea to change head coaches frequently. I'm not even going to say every 2 years, Ren, because I know how you feel about that. But to change head coaches frequently, I can't say that this one is going to be a bad idea. It certainly looks like we're heading that way. I'm not saying that we should. I'm not calling for it. By the way, I notice a lot of people are saying, I'm not calling for Gunner to be fired, but it's probably going to happen. And I'm right there. I'm not calling for him to be fired yet, but if he is, let's make the case. Let's actually make the case and see, is this something that has actually been his MO even as an offensive coordinator under Lovey? Because the idea that he's just had one down year, I don't know is compelling enough reason for me.
Right.
But it's, gosh, looking in Cutter's face during these press conferences over these last couple of weeks, I don't know. There's just something in his eyes that I'm not seeing that, as a fan, makes me want to ride this train, and I'm trying. I'm still on the keep the coaching staff the same ish bandwagon ish, So I'm not fully ready to say throw in the towel on everything just yet. I'm not quite there, but I'm getting there, Ren. I'm really getting there. So anyway, Chef closes up his email. He says, as intense as the Instant Cast show got on Sunday night, it was good to see that we can have a peaceful debate that doesn't result in insults. He said Ren got a little heated in a few calls, but like he says, in a few calls. Oh, but like he says, sorry, I was trying to read this right. But like Ren says about us, he's probably one of the most passionate Bucks fans out there.
Buck fans.
There goes our PG-13 rating. He said it would just be nice to see this team have the same passion on the field that we do as fans. They can say all they want, but as the old saying goes, you are what your record says you are. Now we're 4-9. This team has a lot of soul searching and personnel changes to make once again, and we may get to enjoy another offseason in Buccaneer depression. Hashtag the Buccaneer way. Hashtag it's a Bucks life. Sent from my iPhone.
Yep.
All right. Next email.
Double yep.
Yep. Take a drink. All right. Next email comes in from Adam. This is a new emailer who writes in tonight.
Right.
He says, "Hey Adam, if you I don't see it in here at all. Let us know where you are, man. Let us know where you're writing in from next time you email us. We like to know." But Adam says, he says, "Hey guys, I love your podcast, and this is my first time writing into the show. My question and comments are about Jameis Winston's development as a QB. Yay! Let's talk about this."
Here's a new topic.
He says, my question is this. What is more concerning with Jameis Winston? All of the turnovers or his deep ball inaccuracy? Now, he's got some thoughts on that, but Ren, I'll go ahead and let you kind of give your answer to that before we go on.
Sure. I've said it many times. I've sort of changed up from what I said, but I've said it many times in Instacast and this show. I don't have a problem with his interceptions. I do have a huge problem, once again, with his looseness with the football in the pocket when he's under pressure.
Uh-huh.
The deep ball, it's frustrating, but you can win. His 17 to 25, 26, 27, we'll say 15 to 30. When he doesn't have to put air under it and balloon it out there, when he can, throw it more on a type of a frozen rope, I think he's very good at that. And I think you can move the offense down the field at, 17-yard chunks. Obviously not as quick, but you can still win and have a very productive, explosive offense doing that without having a high percentage on the deep ball. But the turnovers kill drives. So obviously those are more important or more concerning. And like I said, interceptions, I think he's got that under control. At least, I think he's progressing and doing better with that. But once again, the feel in the pocket and when to tuck the ball away is starting to really irritate me.
I get that. I'm with you on the turnover thing, the interceptions. I don't think his interceptions are out of line. If somebody wants to come at me with real stats, please do it. I'd love to have that conversation with you because I just don't think they are. I am concerned about the looseness in the pocket. I think you put that in a really good way. As far as the deep ball inaccuracy, I happen to think that is something that comes with lots of practice and being with your being with your receivers long enough, and then also having your offensive line protect around you, being in a system that actually doesn't take 4 seconds for your play to develop or 5 seconds for your play to develop, So, I'm interested to see what happens. However, I just pulled up the stat, Ryan, while you were talking. As far as the long ball goes, Jameis's rookie year 2015, his longest throw was 68 yards. Mm-hmm. Last year, his longest throw was 45 yards. Mm-hmm. This year, his longest throw, you have a guess?
41.
58.
58.
So now this is just a single throw pulled from each one of his seasons, whichever one the longest one happens to be. But he's already, for all the deep ball inaccuracies that we've seen, he already has a longer deep ball this year than he did all of last year. And we weren't talking about his deep ball inaccuracies last year at all. So,
yes, we were. We've been talking about his deep ball inaccuracies since he got here.
Not to the extent that, maybe not at all. Not to the extent that we have this year. And, of course, we didn't have Deshaun Jackson last year. Deshaun Jackson's presence has, I think, served to highlight.
Yeah, it's put a spotlight on it.
Yeah.
But not to also poo-poo on your stats, that doesn't mean that traveled that far in the air. That 78-yarder could have been a screen pass to Adam Humphries.
Yeah, you're right. You're right about that. You are right about that. Anyway.
More research needed.
More research, yes, definitely. Again, that was a very quick This is just what it says. All right, Adam, though, goes on to talk about these two things. He says, my take on turnovers is that he's being asked to do too much, or he's just trying to do too much because of the failures around him. What I mean by that is that the defense is awful. There's not much of a running game, and the offensive line doesn't give him much time to scan the field, especially recently.
If he means recently by the Green Bay game, then yes.
Yeah.
If he means recently by any other game, then I'm going to disagree.
Yes.
As the offensive line giving him time.
Right. I think his plays take a long time to develop. He goes on to say, the team is constantly behind in both down and distance and on the scoreboard, so naturally Jameis is going to take some chances to try to win the football game. He's a competitor and he wants to win. A lot of these turnovers, in my opinion, can be reduced by having a better team around him. I think he can then be coached into taking better care of the football and making a less risky decision. He's got a pretty damn good team around him right now.
Yeah, he does, especially offensive.
Yeah.
I get the point about the defense because it did feel like that, especially at the beginning of the year, that if the other team had 3 possessions, you were going to be down 17. You were down. They were going to score 17 points in the first 3 possessions. It felt like that early in the season. So I see what you're saying. I just think that I just don't agree with some of it.
Yeah.
I think it can be coached out of him, but I'm not. And we haven't finished the email, but I feel like Adam's laying it at the feet of everybody else but Jameis, and ultimately it has to lay down at his feet. But once again, I think he's improving in all aspects of the game.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think he's getting better. Jameis is responsible for what he's responsible for, and he's certainly not blameless. But I can get with him. He specifically named the defense and the offensive line and the running game, which, as good as everything else is around Jameis, those are probably the 3 biggest places for marked improvement that's needed around him. So Jameis having a better offensive line, look, any quarterback that has a better offensive line is going to do better, right? And certainly Jameis could use a better one. Having a running game, let's face it, the last 2 years it's not been stellar. We'll see what happens here over the next couple of games with hopefully Peyton Barber in the starting spot taking the majority of snaps. But I don't know if the turnovers can be coached out of him as much as playing time gets it out of him, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Does it, you know what I'm saying? Kind of that what we talked. Keep sending him up. Just keep sending him up. He'll get it.
Might just have to learn through experience
right.
instead of somebody telling him.
Yeah. He goes on. He says, this brings me to the deep ball inaccuracy. He says, I don't know if this is something that can be coached at all. I'm not seeing any improvement. Maybe it's a confidence thing. I'm not sure. But Jameis can't hit a deep ball to save his life. D-Jax has a long catch of 41 yards this year, and that was on a quick slant. Evans was open deep 2 or 3 times against the Lions, and Jameis just couldn't hit him. I want to say that D-Jax has been open at least 10 times this season, and I don't believe Jameis has hit him yet or even been close. This seems like a bigger problem to me because the opposing defenses really only have to cover 30 yards past the line of scrimmage. The corners and safeties can take chances and jump routes because they know that they won't get beat over the top. Ultimately, it's points that our offense is leaving on the field, and I'm not sure that a different coach is going to help us with this one at all. Looking forward to your take from Adam. And you can follow him on Twitter at TB Sports Fanatic, by the way.
I think I do.
It's possible.
Let's okay, where to start? Everyone forgets that Jameis Winston hit Deshaun Jackson for a deep touchdown in the Minnesota game. Everybody forgets that.
I just forgot that until you just mentioned that, but yeah.
Yeah, everyone
Sure.
forgets it. It was even the next game after whatever the Minnesota game was, and Jameis missed some deep balls, and it was like he hasn't hit one all year, and it was like he just threw one. But that's here nor there, because yes, most of the Jameis is missing the deep ball way more than he's connecting with it. So yeah, can it switching coaches? I don't know. You know, just like Adam said, like I don't know what the problem is. I don't know. Like you say, it comes with practice and you know, quote unquote chemistry. But you know, we're 13 games in. We had OTAs, we had preseason, you know, all the training camp. How many throws does it take?
Right.
So I don't know as far as the deep ball, but I will go on record and saying that I don't think I think you can win a lot of games without being, you know, a 62% deep ball passer. As far as the DBs and safeties only knowing they have to cover 30 yards down the field, I get it in theory, but no, they're not going to do that, because if they stop 30 yards, then it doesn't really matter where Jameis puts it. He can just lay it up there, sort of like O.J. Howard's first touchdown, where he's just standing there waiting on the ball. Like, you know, Jameis can just put enough air on it and the guy can circle under it. So that doesn't really make a lot of sense. The jumping routes, I haven't seen a lot of that this year. I sound kind of stupid since it just happened in the Detroit game.
I was just thinking, I'm pretty sure I remember at least one example very recently of that. But.
Yeah, but I haven't seen a lot of cornerbacks jumping routes and making plays, especially interceptions.
I feel like a lot of his interceptions this year have been, and I know every interception has its own story, but I feel like a lot of them have really been like a tipped ball. Like the guy needed to catch it and he didn't, and he tipped it, and then it went into the hands of the other guy, and it just gets counted as an interception against Jameis.
Or defensive holding that wasn't called.
Right,
or the linebacker knocks Deshaun Jackson off his route. Wasn't called.
Yeah. I mean, there's been a couple of them that are just really dumb by Jameis, and it didn't go well. But there are others that really seem like it's that it wasn't his fault kind of a thing. You know,
and those are the quarterbacks that throw 10 or less every year. You know,
right?
Like the ones that their fault were probably like 5, and then you have 5 to 6 more that were like the receiver's fault, or it was tipped at the line of scrimmage, or a linebacker got a finger on it and it changed the trajectory, things like that.
Hey, let me put this out there. So Jameis has a history of whenever he goes out and he has a game that is full of interceptions, he usually goes on a streak after that of having 0 interceptions and 0 turnovers.
Yeah.
Like for several games in a row.
Yeah.
So that means that coming off this game, he is due for at least a 3-game streak of having 0 turnovers, which means if he follows that path, he'll have less than 10 this year by the end of the season.
less than 10 with 13 games played.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's going to happen.
I don't know if it's going to happen. I'm
not going to put any money down on that.
No. I might put 5 just for fun. But now
I like your train of thought.
Right. Adam brings up something here that this is not what Adam was getting at. So Adam, I'm not harping on you by any stretch of the imagination. This reminds me of something that I have been seeing out there in social media and among fandom. People are starting to talk about, oh, why aren't we letting Jameis throw the deep ball? We're making him do all these dink and dunks. We're not trusting him to throw the ball long. We're, a little bit of what Adam was saying here of, now people know that they don't have to cover very deep. They can just get up on him and be real short with it. And, but I take that and then I go back to the beginning of the year of people saying, why is he throwing the deep ball? Just take what the defense gives you. Do the dink and dunk. Get the ball down the field. And and I will, to be fair, these are 2 separate groups of people. It's not the same people that were hollering one that are now hollering something different. But collectively as a fan base, we're bipolar, man. It's like, oh my God, like, guys, what are we doing? Like, fans, let's again, I'm not getting on Adam. I'm seeing this out there. It just, what he said there reminds me that, listen, we can't have it both ways. I like Jameis's progression right now. I do wish that his deep ball accuracy was a lot better. And he talks about coaching. I had this thought. I didn't bring it up, but then I want to say it was Tom Jones and Rick Stroud on their podcast. Possibly. Maybe it was the Pewter Report guys. It was one of those two that after the game we're talking about the idea of so regardless if you think things have been good or not, has Jameis plateaued under Cutter's tutelage? Right. Which is possible. Like that's very there players, artists, like whatever, there are some things that you can have a very good teacher up to a point. And then that teacher is not going to be able to do anything else with you. You have to go on to the next level. Has Cutter and Jameis, have they reached that point in Jameis's development? And I think that's a good question to ask. I really do.
I don't. I think it's a terrible question.
Okay. Well,
I mean, I get the train of thought and the thinking. I follow it, but okay. First, you have to tell me what you think Jameis isn't learning, because I'm pretty sure Coach Cutter doesn't coach turnovers.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Now, to be fair, for me, I can't answer this question. I can't answer these questions you're about to ask me because this is a new thought that I am just now having. Okay. Like since in the middle of yesterday's game, I kind of went, I wonder if he's maybe hit that spot. So I've not spent a lot of time dwelling on this a lot. Let me just say that. But I see that. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I mean that's kind of just it. It's like if you're gonna say that, you could say whatever you want. But if you're gonna say that to me and we're having this conversation, you're going to have to say, well, tell me where you think Jameis is capped from Cutter's teaching and tell me what you think that Cutter's not teaching him. Mm-hmm. Because once again, it seems it's been the theme for the Instacast and pretty much his show as well. I think Jameis is developing and improving in almost every aspect of his game. I believe his completion percentage is up. I've talked about how I think his decision-making throwing the ball down the field is better. The last thing on my list from the start of the year which really wasn't on the list, but it became apparent that it should have been very early in the season, is his, once again, taking care of the football in the pocket. And that's it for me. Everything else, I think he's doing fine. Mm-hmm. And I would like for him to go through his progressions a little faster. But, it's year 3. And I know it sort of gets tainted because you see Carson Wentz, having an MVP year in year 2. And then Jared Goff, who basically was left for dead his rookie year, Sean McVay comes in. And, Jared Goff looks like a top 10 quarterback. But, what about Paxton Lynch? You'd rather have him than Jameis? Would you rather have Deshaun Kaiser than Jameis? There are a lot of quarterbacks out. Look at Marcus Mariota this year. He's having a bad year as far as decision-making with the football. I think he's having a worse year than Jameis. Would you rather have Marcus Mariota than Jameis?
Mm-hmm.
You can't – not everybody's going to be Aaron Rodgers. So if you're looking on the outside and go, why can't Jameis be this player X? He's – look what he's doing. Well, one, look how many years he's been in the league, which, Carson Wentz fits that. But not everybody can be that guy. There's only going to be one Carson Wentz. Look at Dak Prescott. He lost his running back, and he became extremely pedestrian. Had a good game Sunday. But it's almost like that saying, you don't know what you had till it's gone.
Uh-huh.
Putting a grade on Jameis now as like this is what he's going to be for his career is way, way, way too soon. Matthew Stafford, who is the highest paid quarterback in the league right now, he had terrible start to his career. Mm-hmm. He quarterbacked an 0-16 team. He had a winless season as a quarterback, and now look at him. Now he's considered, he's up there, and he's definitely in the top 10, and you could kind of shuffle him in and out of the top 5 from week to week to week. Most fourth quarter comebacks in the past 2-3 years,
Mm-hmm.
So it's just too early. I get the frustration, but you got to remember that he hasn't even played 50 NFL football games yet.
Right. Right. Well, thank you, Adam, for your email. Please, we look forward to more emails coming in from you. Would love to hear from you definitely again. So thank you for that. All right, next email comes in from Tom, who sent us an email in last week. And he says this. He says, "Hey guys, happy holidays. Just to clarify from last week's email, with which I stated that we were 1-8. I was referring to road wins dating back to week 13 when we beat the Chargers, and we have one road game against the Dolphins this season that we've won." Mm-hmm. He says, "So anyway, I guess I was saying that it is a pretty bad record as a coach going into the offseason hoping to hold on to your job. Another concern talking about X's and O's regarding this coaching staff is the lack of a 4-step drop for Jameis. I heard a lot of talk about his turnover problems, and sure, they are a problem only in the sense that he is not being set up for success. Here's an early example from earlier this year. I was watching the Patriots versus the Raiders, and Jim Nantz was marveling about how Brady was on fire, so I really started paying attention to what the play calling was, and I noticed that whether Brady was in the shotgun or under center, he was taking 3-step drops, or literally in the shotgun getting the ball and taking one more step, and then it's out. By halftime, they put up showing Brady had completed 14 straight passes, and the graphic went on to show the yards per attempt, and only one ball went for more than 14 yards. Most of his throws were for under 10 yards. I mean, how could you not be successful as a pro quarterback like that when the defense doesn't even have a chance to cross the line of scrimmage before the ball is out?"
Well, a couple of things. One, he was playing the Raiders, who are terrible this year and
Mm-hmm.
have been pretty – even though they have some nice players on defense, kind of like the Bucs, they just haven't been put up they've given up a lot of points. Second, Sam Bradford. There you go. That's how you do that and not be a successful quarterback in the NFL, because that's Sam Bradford's MO.
Mm-hmm.
5 to 8 yards, boom, it comes out. And he's extremely accurate as well. But
Mm-hmm.
you know what? He's not Tom Brady. And there's a couple of reasons the Patriots did that against us, and there's a couple of reasons they do it. One, because you can move the chains, you got to be hyper accurate, and it also keeps Tom Brady, who's 40 years old, keeps him standing upright.
Right.
So
Right.
It's sort of hard. It is hard to compare the Patriots to any other team, because from week to week, offensively and defensively, they really don't have an identity. Their identity is they win games. They're not a running team. They're not a short passing team. They're not a deep passing team. On defense, don't get a lot of sacks. Don't get a lot of turnovers. Don't give up a lot of yards. Whatever, they're going to figure out where you're weak, and they're going to attack that. And no matter if it changes from shotgun to under center to heavy run to heavy screen game to short passes to deep passes, whatever it is, they're going to find it. And since they do have a quarterback like Tom Brady, who's been in the league, since peanut butter and jelly was invented, he has enough experience to be able to do that and change that up from week to week to week. So I hear what you're saying, but yeah, there's only one Tom Brady, and Alex Smith as well. Alex Smith in Kansas City. They would win a lot of games, but when they go up against the really good teams in the NFL, that 5 to 7 yard against the good defenses, that's not going to put up enough points to win games, and that's why they get knocked out of the playoffs early all the time.
Now I'm going to come at this from the other side because I think I said this maybe even earlier today. Is I do think that an area of improvement for Jameis is how long it takes him to get the ball out of his hand.
Right.
Now whether that's because we have our routes take so long to develop, and Jameis is just waiting for somebody to get where they're supposed to be, or whatever the case is. I was talking to somebody. Did we mention this on the Instacast last night? I was talking to somebody in the stadium yesterday, where they were looking at the time between the snap of the ball and when the ball came out of the hands between the time when Fitzpatrick was in for us over the last bunch of games and then with Jameis. And Jameis is almost a full second to a second and a half longer than Fitzpatrick, which in NFL time is a long time. That's a really long time. So, I get what Tom is saying here, and I actually agree. I'd like to see that ball come out faster. But at the same time, there's a give and take there, right? Because if you're going to throw the deep ball, you got to give it time to develop. You also have to have your offensive line be able to block for you. Now, historically, this year, the offensive line has been better than okay on pass blocking. There have been a few games where it's been horrendous, like the Green Bay game, right? But in general, their pass blocking has been really good. It's their run blocking that's been shit. So, I get where Tom's going with that, and I agree with him in theory. But as you say, Ren, the other side of that being, if you're going to run that kind of an offense, you have to have a guy who is pinpoint accurate. And, there's not a whole lot of guys out there. Even Jameis. Jameis can drop him on a dime, but, we don't need him on a dime. We need him on the head of whatever dead president is on the dime. I forget who it is. Get a little more accurate.
Isn't it?
I don't know. I don't remember who it is. Somebody's going to email us. People are in their car right now listening to this, yelling at us, saying, it's George Washington or someone. I don't know who it is.
Is it FDR?
No, he's not on anything. Anyway, moving on. He says, in the defense, he says, come on, man, we are soft as butter, and obviously we are lacking a lot of talent. Whatever happened to Hargraves? Was he put on IR? He's still on the injured report with a hamstring injury is what it is. They haven't put him on IR yet. I don't think they will. It's just a hamstring injury. They don't have no reason to put him on IR. I don't think.
It's FDR.
Is it FDR? Is it really?
Boom.
Is it really? I didn't think he was on any of our money.
Obviously, that's when I said FDR. You said he's not on any of the money. That would make sense.
See, now I'm looking for a dime, and I don't think I have one.
Well, it doesn't have his name on it. I have one in my hand, and
you're looking at it. Yeah.
Yeah, but
right.
First off, I've gone blind. By the way, like small writing, I can't. I'm like, I can't see.
Yeah.
But
anyway.
So I googled it.
Google. Okay. Well, thank you, Google, for showing me up, as you so often do.
Settling 2 million bar bets a day and counting.
There you go. And arguments over the dinner table. So yeah, Hargraves. He's just injured with a hamstring. I could not tell you the last time have we ever seen somebody go on IR for a hamstring?
Bond last year.
Okay, there you go.
And Kenny Bell year before that.
That was a hamstring.
But that was more
okay.
that but that was more of
we were stashing him, weren't we?
Yeah, we were stashing both of them.
Kind of like we did.
You're not good enough to play, but we want to develop you.
Right.
You're sitting
like Stevie T this year.
Yes,
I think we really just stashed him. I don't know that much as I saw him walking around in the locker room that one day that I was there, and I was like, "There's nothing wrong with you."
You're hurt. No, I'm not. Do you want to play football?
Then you're hurt.
Then you're hurt.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
Ow!
He's hurt. IR, guys. Let's go. All right. He finishes up his email. He says, in my last email, I lobbied for Gruden, and you guys kind of poo-pooed the idea. I think there are more and more people who are feeling that maybe Gruden is the way to go. But who do you get for a GM and the defensive coordinator will be the question. Gruden has his faults, but what other head coach that has a ring and lives locally, loves Jameis, and could actually utilize the talent that's available on this offense? Thanks again for reading my email. I love the show. Tom from Rainbow Springs in Florida.
Thanks, Tom. Well, that's unfair of a question. Who else has a ring, lives locally? Loves the Buccaneers. That's kind of a small circle to look for.
Happens to have a fired Football Coaches of Association office.
And as an announcer for Monday Night Football.
Wears a lot of visors.
There? I ask you.
Yeah.
I'm still not on board with Gruden. Once again, I'm still on the Cutter train. I don't think he should be fired. People seem just to remember that first year with John Gruden and, how much him and Monty didn't get along. Obviously, him and Keyshawn didn't get along. He kicked him off the team. We're going to pay you. Just don't show up to $1 ever again.
Right.
And even though it's a little bit unfair, you take away his Super Bowl year, his first year, he had a below 500 record for the Buccaneers. Now, he did win 2 other NFC Central titles.
He did.
Or NFC South titles, sorry. Way old Bucks. One of them was at 9-7, which, but it's feast or famine with John Gruden.
It is. That's the thing. Sorry,
and I'm not sure that's what – no, go ahead. I'm not sure that's what I want as for my head coach. So I am poo-pooing it again.
Yeah, I go back to the whole thing with Gruden. Listen, I love nostalgia. I think it makes a cool story, the idea that the guy who gets fired eventually comes back. I've never known – and I don't know NFL history enough to – I don't know of any team that has fired a coach – and then years later brought him back to be the coach again. Has that ever happened? I don't know.
Shanahan with the Redskins.
Did it? Okay.
And then RG3 got him fired.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
Sure.
But either way, how did that work out for Shanahan the second time around?
RG3 got him fired.
Well, so there you go. My point being is, in general, as a general rule, I don't want to see people go backwards. Move forward. And I think that there are other – Billy
Martin with the Yankees. Sorry,
not football. But I think that there are other guys out there that actually might be a better choice other than Gruden. But I love the nostalgia. I really do. I love the nostalgia for the guy. I think I'm getting a little closer to the jumping off the Cutter bandwagon than you are, but I'm still not 100% there yet. Right now, if the season were to end, I'd probably be like, yeah, let's probably keep him. I'm not I don't know. But Cutter's got 3 more games to make up my mind for me one way or the other. But I would, that's why and by the way, listen, I don't care how many fans are getting on the Cutter band or the Gruden bandwagon. I don't care if we're on the Gruden bandwagon eventually, Bren. I don't want ownership making a decision based off what the fans want. Make the best decision for the team, regardless of what fans keep clamoring for. I don't get the feeling that the majority of fans are for Gruden. I just think that the ones who are vocal are being very vocal about it now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's definitely, and then with, Gruden coming in next week, Monday night, it's going to be, I think there might be an article or two about it.
We'll probably talk about it. I'll be honest, it's the thing I'm looking forward to most about the game. is I want to see how that whole thing turns out. And it's probably going to be the biggest letdown since the end of some TV show that we all liked that had a really big letdown in the finale. Lost. Since the biggest letdown since Lost.
Seinfeld.
Right. Yeah. But anyway, once again, Tom, thank you so much for sending that in. Ren, we've got one more email, and this one is more of a question or two.
Right.
Actually, this one comes from our friend David Mays, who is in Oregon, not in Canada, he says. He clarifies that for us once again. He says, "Hello, gents. Is it time to move on from Doug? Personally, I think it is. I don't think he's happy here, and I think they can get something in return."
Okay, sorry. What? Doug Martin off the train. Yes. What was that? And what was he saying?
He said, "Is it time to move on from Doug? Personally, I think it is. I don't think that he's happy here, and I think we can get something in return."
Yeah, I don't.
I don't. Yeah.
Because the team that you trade has to take on his salary.
Or rework it, because nothing's guaranteed, right? I don't know how that works. If Doug Martin gets traded, does the team have to abide by his current contract? If the Bucks aren't even obligated to it.
Well, that's a good point. Here's the thing. I could be totally wrong on that. No team's going to trade for Doug Martin, because if we're trying to trade him, that probably means we're going to let him go. And then you can pick him up, and then you can pay him, whatever you want.
You can get him for nothing, right?
It's kind of what happened with Denver with TJ Ward.
Yeah.
Hey, TJ Ward, he's a Pro Bowler. Who wants him? Why?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to let him go?
Right.
I'll just wait a couple of days. Thanks.
Right.
Keep my draft picks.
The only reason for that is if somebody likes Doug Martin enough that they don't want to risk another team swooping in and getting him. So then they offer a draft pick in exchange. And honestly, with what Doug has put up in the last couple of years, I don't think any team is going to put up draft picks to guarantee that another team doesn't pick him up.
Yeah, not even a seventh rounder.
I do think that if Doug gets cut, he will probably be picked up by a team somewhere. A running back needy team. Will he do well there? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But I just don't think that we're gonna get much in return for Doug if we tried to trade him. We could try. I'd be surprised if Jason Light hadn't already picked up the phone to say, "Hey, who wants him?" People are going, "Not me." Anyway.
Who wants this bum?
Yeah.
That's no way to start negotiations. And I didn't really mean bum. I was just trying to make a joke.
Doug, don't come hit him. All right, David has one more question. He says, "Also, am I the only one who wants Adam Humphries to stick around? Thanks, David in Oregon, not Canada."
No. I haven't seen anything about not wanting Adam Humphries to stick around. No, I do see people thinking that Adam Humphries is standing in the way of Chris Godwin, which isn't necessarily true because he plays mostly outside. And I've talked about how much you can put on his plate. It does take a while to learn all three wide receiver positions. And he's primarily learning, I believe the Bucs call it the X and Y. No, that's not true. Who knows? Anyway, the outside spots is what he's
learning. He's learning Mike Evans' spot.
Yeah, Mike Evans and Deshaun Jackson's spot. That's what he's learning. So, I want Humphries back. I think he had a down year. He disappeared when Fitzpatrick played for 3 games, but he seems to be back. That Jameis is there. He caught all of his targets in the Detroit game. And I think he had like 4 catches. So he's Chris Godwin, just not as athletically gifted, physically gifted. I shouldn't say athletically, physically gifted. He's just not as big and as Chris Godwin. They're kind of the same guy. It's like, hey, can you return punts? Yeah, I can. Okay,
Yeah, and we'll probably talk about this when we hit the off season. To some extent more, but my prediction is that because Humphries and Brait both will be restricted free agents this year. I think I'm right with that. I think they're both either way, like they're both in the same camp, like whatever it is. I think the Bucs will put a tender offer on them. I think the tender offer for Cameron Brate will probably be much higher than it will be for Adam Humphries. And if another team comes by and offers Humphries a better deal than what the Bucs have offered him, the Bucs will not match the deal for Adam Humphries. I think that they will do anything they can to keep Cameron Brate. They want the two tight ends set between Cam and O.J. Howard. The chemistry that Brate and Jameis have, they'd be fools to lose Cameron Brate at this point. But Adam Humphries is expendable. And I hate to put it that way. I think this team. I think we would love to have Adam Humphries back, but I don't think that he has a certain dollar value to the organization, and the organization isn't going to go over that just to keep him.
Yeah, and you're right. They're both going to be restricted free agents.
Yeah.
Adam Humphries making $615,000 this year.
Right, and I wouldn't blame Adam for I don't quite know that he's going to test the open market. I don't think that's quite how that works.
He's a restricted free agent.
Right.
He can't.
Right. So they'll
just like you said, the Bucs will put a tender and he has to sign it. Basically,
right.
You want to play, you got to sign it.
Right.
But a team can come in and the Buccaneers will get first rights, get like you said, get to match it.
Uh-huh.
And if they don't, depending on what tenure, so it's like where you're drafted. It's like, you can first round, second round, third round. And I think everything after that is it just becomes sort of a monetary value. It's I have to look it up, and I will once we get to the offseason.
We'll explain all that when we get to the offseason and brush up on
starts getting to baseball rules and that kind of stuff.
Right. If the ball hits the ground first, then you can keep running and stuff like that.
No, I meant like the 40-man roster, 90-man roster, when you can bring guys up and down. Like when you get to restricted free agents in football.
You can put them in the bullpen and.
Okay.
All right.
Somebody out there knows what I'm talking about.
Although, Ren, I'm very much for your idea of developing a farm league system for the NFL.
Oh, yeah.
With that, though, Ren, that is going to wrap up this segment as well as this episode as a whole. Just as a final reminder for everyone out there, you can get in touch with us about anything we've talked about today on Twitter @ThePewterCast or at Facebook.com/ThePewterCast. Or if you're a little more winded than the 280 characters or so that Twitter allows you, email us to thepewtercast@gmail.com. I want to say thank you to everybody who has emailed us in tonight and joined us definitely for the Instant Cast. Ren, as we're heading out of here, where can people find you on the internet?
Best way is to find me on Twitter @RenDaxt, REN_DAXT. And as I always say, I'm always down to talk Buccaneers football.
And you can find me on Twitter personally @BrentAllenLive. Please come follow me this week specifically. Follow my adventures as I'll be down in Puerto Rico. It's a big deal for me. It's a big trip. I'm super excited for it. Find me on Facebook.com/BrentAllenLive. And that's going to do it for this week. So until next time, everybody, go Bucs.